As someone who has had Devil May Cry as his favorite series for as long as I can remember, I feel like I have some right to have some input on this new show. And I have to say, I loved it. I know that a certain percentage of the people had problems with it, and that's okay. You don't have to like the show. But the people, the amount of people that are straight up hating on it and saying it's the worst thing to happen to Devil May Cry is ridiculous in my opinion. It was a fun show. The show had a lot of good, some bad, and some things that maybe weren't for me, or maybe weren't for you, or maybe weren't for some other people. But, like, it's a good show. For one, it's not canon, which a lot of people I see complaining about. It takes half a second to Google, is the show canon? To which it will say, no. Before it came out, they even said that it's not really canon. I wasn't sure what that meant before the show came out, so I was like, okay, it's going to be like 90% canon. No, it's its own timeline, it's its own thing, and it's allowed to do that. That is a good thing, because then they can do whatever they want, and as long as they stay true to the characters, which for the most part they have, then that's okay. At its very core, it is a Devil May Cry show, because there are two things that make Devil May Cry Devil May Cry. Kick ass, and it's a lot of fun, which the show does both very good. The show is very energetic, and it's clear that the people working on it loved making it. And honestly, at this point, I am just glad to see that Devil May Cry is still alive and still thriving as a game, franchise, and as a fandom. Granted, some of the fandom has been a bit twatty. And with all this, they can make their own story. With their own characters in their own way. They can add characters, they can take away characters, which is fine. They're allowed to do that. And it just makes the story that much more unpredictable. If they were to just copy and paste the games, they'd be kind of like Invincible right now, where people already know the story years before they're even able to animate it. Which some people like, because they're like, oh, I called that, I saw that, I did the thing! And then some people hate because they're like, oh, what's the point? I already know everything that's going to happen. Plus, with all the loosey-goosey story timeline stuff having its own stuff, they can make references to any point in Devil May Cry history without having to contradict itself, such as bosses from almost each game dying. There are a few things that I feel like I didn't personally like that a lot of people did like. Lady cussed a lot. That wasn't really like a breaking point for me, but I know some people didn't really like it. I thought it was a little much. She had a mouth of a sailor for her. The show is loosely based off of the manga because, like, the shapeshifter coming in dressed as Virgil is something that happens directly in the story, or in the manga. There were a couple things that I personally didn't like that I see a lot of people really like. One, I don't like that every single character demands your empathy. Even someone as low as Enzo ends up making you have to feel sad for them when they die. I get that some people like that every single character has background and story and cause and stuff, but sometimes, personally, I like it when the bad guy is just a bad guy who needs his butt kicked. Another thing that I didn't really like that a lot of people did like, I didn't like the way they did White Rabbit. I am not a fan of characters that are like always 8 steps ahead. It feels like a tired trope to me. I didn't hate it, but it wasn't the biggest fan of it. Also, because it wasn't canon, there were many times where I caught myself being like, hey, wait a minute, that's wrong. But like, it's gonna be an adjustment period, but I still had fun watching the show. Some things that I didn't really like was when Dante went Devil Trigger, he had a really big head. I don't know if that was just me, but I felt like his head was too big. I know the little hair poof is like something that's iconic to the Devil Trigger, but it seemed too large. He had a big bobblehead. I see some people arguing certain points online, and they're stupid. One is people talking about how Lady was overpowered and easily beat Dante over and over, and it was more of a Lady show than a Devil May Cry Dante show. That's wrong. Every single Devil May Cry game has had Dante and a badass chick. Those are two things that are quintessential to Devil May Cry. And yeah, in the third game, when Dante has a bit more experience than he does in the show, Lady still goes toe-to-toe with him at times. And also, Dante specifically talks about how he's trying out a new no-kill strategy. So this isn't like peak Dante going in fighting for his life. Because you see, he's mocking people as he's fighting them, which this early in his career is a bit more risky for him, because he's not as used to every step and beat of these enemies. Even when Lady got the necklace from him, he was joking about like, oh, slight cut on the cheek, not even realizing that she already took the necklace from him. And once he had realized that she had got the necklace, he locked down, chased her down, pinned her against the wall. And then, he thought he got the amulet, but it was a grenade. Other than that, he was tricked by Lady. It wasn't an overpower, it was outsmarting, which Dante has never really been the smartest one of the series. He's always just kind of gone along with it, trying to kick ass and save lives. Plus, this version of Lady is basically a demon Navy SEAL. She has had proper training. She has hunted more demons than Dante probably has. She has an exosuit, special bullets, and she's literally the best of the best here. Another thing I see, that this one's a bit of a spoiler at this point, is people talk about Virgil being Mundus's lapdog, which, duh, he's brainwashed. That's literally how he is in the games. That's the whole point of Nello Angelo, is that he is a brainwashed Virgil who is doing Mundus's business. Like, that is canon. That is how it is. This is not new. This is not a change to his character. We see his form of Nello Angelo. Granted, it's more of like a devil trigger at this point, but he is still brainwashed because that's just how it is. I have played this game my whole life. This was one of the first series that I delved into. I was 4 years old. That is a blockbuster game case. I was 4 years old when Devil May Cry 3 came out, and I begged my parents for it, because my big brother liked 1 and 2, and so I'd watch him play. I played those games on repeat over and over and over before I even knew how to load the game. So I would play the first 3-4 stages, and then reset, and then reset. So these were games that I was highly invested in for literally as long as I could have been. I am so dedicated to knowing these things. I've watched the original anime, I played all of the games, even I bought this because my friend kept mocking me because I was like, it's a bad game, it's a bad game. So he's like, you have to play it before you give an opinion. And guess what? I was right. It's a bad game, which is one of the few things that Devil May Cry has done bad, in my opinion. In my opinion, there's 3 things that it's done bad. 1, the DMC Devil May Cry. Duh. 2, peak of combat. It was a phone game. It was boring. That's about it. 3, the Smash Bros. Wii Fighter outfit hurt me because they teased Dante and Super Smash Brothers, and then they came out with that. But no, I've seen the animes, I've played all the games, I've read the descriptions of monsters and weapons, I have watched multi-hour videos about lore that I might have missed. I've seen so much about these games, and I adore them to my heart, and I love everything that they are and that they stand for. And whether you like it or not, this show is the heart of Devil May Cry. It has the core of what makes Devil May Cry fun. It may not have as much of the story and inspiration and blah 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 yet. They plan on doing more. This is not the end. And it literally ends with that family tie of, my brother's still alive. So as someone who has been a fan for my whole life, I am glad this show exists, and I am happy to have watched it. I have never had the chance to talk to people about Devil May Cry properly. I don't go online much. I would grow up and I would talk to people about it in person at school, and nobody knew what Devil May Cry was. I would take the game multiple places. I would take it anywhere I could go. I would bring my PlayStation 2 if I was going to a friend's house who didn't have one. I have multiple copies of Devil May Cry 2 still, because I would take them to friends, leave them there, let them borrow them, and then sometimes I wouldn't get them back, or sometimes I would forget them, or sometimes I would lose them, because I was always taking them places, because I wanted to share Devil May Cry with as much people as I could. And I am seeing people advocate for gatekeeping your fandoms because of this show. No, this is something that younger me would have been ecstatic to learn about. It doesn't matter how niche a game is if it dies out. So, in conclusion, if you want to talk Devil May Cry, there's a comment section. I would love to talk to basically anyone who's not just blatant, you suck, this sucks, show sucks. I would talk about anything Devil May Cry with anyone, because that's always the way I've been. I even have replica Ebony and Ivories. That was a gift for me 2 or 3 years ago for my birthday. I've also watched the show with my wife, who's a casual. She doesn't know the lore as deep as someone like me does. As soon as I told her, hey, it's not canon, she loved the show. She loved everything about it. I think she gave it an 8 out of 10. I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. Maybe that's a little bit of bias talking. But guess what? I don't care. I am biased to love something that I love. And I will continue to love Devil May Cry.